cybersecurity. We are doing our red and blue cybersecurity show today. And the format of the show is that we spend a really intense time on a particular topic. Today's topic is fantastic. It's how to incorporate ChatGPT and other AI features into your regular ongoing technologies and to be able to improve your productivity. And our speakers today are Steve Flynn. Actually, Steve, I'm going to ChatGPT. I'm going to read your ChatGPT intro right here.
Right. Let's see how it does.
What a cool story.
Steve Flynn is an accomplished author in optimizing data, learning, and action for organizational success. His book, Optimizing Data to Learning to Action, provides valuable insights into leveraging machine learning and IT digital transformation to achieve superior performance. How's that, huh?
That sounds authoritative.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few more there, but I had to cut it a little bit. But and our other speaker, Arik. So I really appreciate you being on here as an expert in data monetization, increasing productivity with AI and data analytics. This is ChatGPT now. With a disciplined and organized approach, Arik has successfully worked with C-level executives using analytical thinking and data-driven strategies to achieve remarkable outcomes. So that's what ChatGPT thinks about you guys.
Thank you. We should call OpenAI and say thank you.
Yeah, no. So hey, that's what our goal is to kind of you both of you got these fantastic resumes and accomplishments you've had. I mean, Steve, you got a patent on things, so we don't want to quite get into that one. But
don't worry.
Okay, we kind of want to get into just the things that we see in everyday posts, how people are using ChatGPT, how you see it and visualize how it can improve productivity, and just some of those things that are wins for people that could be utilized tomorrow or even right after this podcast. After that, I think I'll talk a little bit about how so Steve, you can kind of walk us through the big picture. Arik, you actually are with Future Processing Consultants. They are working with specific clients, and how you work with the clients on implementing these kind of additions to their operation and some of the nitty-gritty type stuff that has to go on. I'll talk a little bit about Prancer and ChatGPT incorporated into our cybersecurity platform and the ways that we use it for crunching the monster amount of data that comes out of some of the vulnerability risk assessments that we do, and to give people an idea of that. So with that, Steve, okay, so you got this, you got the book, you got Optimizing Data to Learning to Action. So give us a little perspective from your standpoint on this whole ChatGPT, what's happening, and the phenomena that's happening in the marketplace.
Okay, well, it is a phenomenon. So I will say that this is beyond hype. It's real, and it's exciting for those of us that have been in AI and ML for some period of time. I'll just say before I get onto the optimizing data learning to action, sort of quickly, my little journey around AI and ML really started almost 2 decades ago because my company was involved in building recommender systems, right? And back in those days, we weren't using the neural network deep learning stuff that is taken over really the space now. But it's algorithmic, statistical kinds of learning processes, and that area, continued to progress for many years and get good. And most of the things you dealt with in your everyday life, whether it's Amazon or Facebook or whatever, there's algorithmic sort of recommender systems underneath, basically, either sending you content or sending you advertisements, right? That drove the whole Silicon Valley phenomena in many ways, social media. So that was the state of the art, really, until a few years ago. And then really, it changed in sort of image processing in around 2012, 2013. And then suddenly language in 2015, 16, 17. And now there's no going back. So it's a deep learning revolution with neural networks. It's now there's no longer any debate about, will there be another kind of AI or algorithm? I think, connectionist models like neural networks have won, basically. Now, whether they're sufficient, that's a good topic that we can get into a little bit. But, they're necessary, to create really intelligent systems. So it's been an interesting journey over the last couple of decades. And I can tell you that from my perspective, we are in a exponential jump here in the last couple of years. Even the experts are surprised at how good this natural language processing stuff, exemplified by ChatGPT, is. So just again, from my perspective, being pretty deep into this stuff, technically, this is a big deal. There's going to be hype, but it is a big deal. And it's a mistake to just be focused on the state of the art right now, because I can guarantee in a year or two, it is going to be that much better. The curve is there. It's silly not to be tracking that curve. So that's just sort of, again, it's a big deal. It's exciting. And it's great to be able to talk about this stuff in this kind of forum.
Yeah.
Now, on the data to learning to action idea, that's really kind of a ubiquitous process that runs in our own brains all the time, right? We're basically taking in data from our sensory organs. We're learning from that, and then we're taking some action. We're making a decision and taking some action. It's also a big deal in organizations, because if you really look at what drives value in organizations, it's predominantly decisions. If you think about it, it's a truism. It's got to be decisions. It's basically decisions that basically separate, the performance of one company from another company and so forth. Some of those are big decisions, some of them are little, but the cumulative effect really drives performance. And underneath every decision is a supporting data to learning to action process. And some of those may be fairly simple, some more complex. And if you think about it, that's what machine learning is all about too. It's about taking in data, learning from it, and then taking some sort of action. That action might be, for example, a recommendation, or it might be generating some text against a prompt, or it might be optimizing something, or it might be an inference, basically, of a preference if it's a person. So it's a ubiquitous kind of thing. And what's useful for it, I find, with organizations is think about that in the context of applying things like machine learning, right? Because you want to find the data to learning to action processes that are really critical for your company. And then you're going to look at what are sort of the bottlenecks there. What are the things that keep our decision-making from being even better than it could be? And what you find, and what's exciting about this era, is a lot of times the bottlenecks were we just couldn't process the information as effectively as we might with manual methods, et cetera. And AI, machine learning, can play a role there. So it can help debottleneck data learning to action kind of processes. And that's a big driver of value. And some of that value is productivity, efficiency kind of things that we talk about all the time. That's often the low-hanging fruit. But some of it is making that process better, making those strategic processes better. And that's key from a competitive advantage standpoint. So that tends to be the way I tend to look at it, is at the low level, that's what the machines are doing, data learning to action, but it's also core to customers and organizations and how to help them create even more value from these tools and understand the tools often need bottlenecks addressed somewhere else. Like you may need the kind of data that needs to be filtered to get the machine learning to work, et cetera. But think about those constraints and understand the opportunities with this new technology to help you create even more value. So that's
wow. Okay.
a high level here.
So, Arik, from your standpoint, we heard the bottleneck. We got turning data into value. So, when you approach your clients with your particular consulting thing, is there when you look at this, what's some of the focuses that you end up dealing with them? What or the watch outs or the pros and that you suggest to and with your specific clients?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Steve, for this high-level thing. It's actually very, very valuable. There's nothing I can add. But from a future processing perspective, first thing is super critical in business to find the proper use case. The companies are, I don't want to say tired, but they want to make sure that AI, machine learning, predictions, data monetization will bring value. I don't want to say as fast as possible, but quickly. The promise is huge. MIT published the research that ChatGPT solely is going to bring up the productivity increase by 50%. Electricity was 30% improvement in our lives. So we're really talking about the huge promise. But the question is in business, all right, RX, so should future processing look into financial, sales, marketing, maybe operations, maybe supply chain, and make sure that when we inject that new technologies there, the solutions, it will quickly increase their ROI. And the good thing is to find a use case. That's one thing. Then when you find a use case, it's actually super important to measure it. So what Steve mentioned about machine learning productivity, I need to tell you this, guys, that not always AI is the solution. Companies not always ready from the way one to jump into machine learning, trade their own LLM models or hire open source models. Sometimes, like one of our customer in an automotive industry was about statistics in the manufacturing plant. Just a simple regression models and you can be ready to go. You don't need to invest in training your own models and hire solutions like ChatGPT. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, we got to remember that, and thank you so much, guys, for mentioning that this is decision-making process. Companies want to predict. They want to predict how many customers will leave their operations, like move to competitors, which is churn management. They need to predict when the next things will break in the manufacturing plant so they can react faster. Airlines want to make sure that that engine will need extra maintenance before the plane will be grounded. And predictions has a cost. They have cost and accuracy. So the cheaper you can make the prediction, the better. And that's also like what Steve mentioned. It depends on the quality of the data. If you get one of our customers is like had like a lot of data, and then they add drones. Drones were like taking images. It's about predictive maintenance thing. And then those drones supply with data, but that data didn't exist historically. So we have like two different sets. And that kind of thing influence the prediction cost. So I would say that use case, make sure that you can calculate ROI and make sure that you actually can improve the bottom line. And the third thing is obviously a prediction cost, which is very critical for them. And the promise is huge, as I mentioned. MIT, it's one of the evidence, but there's a lot of promise and companies are kind of tired, I would say, like reading about what is possible. They want to make sure that it works.
Well, that brings up a good topic. Some of them are going to need future processing consultants, but then there's the ChatGPT type of element that some of these technology companies, Prancer, for instance, is using ChatGPT to go through. We have changed vulnerability risk assessments from a manual pen testing process every 12 months, 6 months, to a continuous process because of the clouds, the hybrid clouds, and all the new systems require a lot more double checking. But the data is coming out, and to be able to execute and make it usable and actionable, you have to crunch through that data. And we've actually implemented our own intelligence systems. Plus, we're also putting on top of the ChatGPT. But is there, from Steve, your standpoint, are you actually working with clients, or are you writing about these kind of things where you are, easy wins to get some of these new? I think Bing has one. There's, all the big guys are starting to implement
all of the
kind of system there.
Yeah, exactly. Just on a moment on Prancer. Yeah, I mean, you're a good example where you're using the AI machine learning in multiple parts of sort of the data learning to action, right? And sort of the auto discovery part and so forth, but also now with ChatGPT and sort of planning and executing remediation, et cetera. And so you can see how it's not just, I mean, we're very fixated these days on ChatGPT because it's, it sucks up a lot of mind share, and deservedly so.
Yeah.
But you can see how multiple different kinds of machine learning can play a role here. And that's exciting. You've got sort of an ensemble of kind of capabilities. In general, I find, and it's sort of, as Eric said, you've got to keep your eye on sort of return. But especially with this generative AI stuff, the ChatGPT and some of the image generating kinds of things, what I tend to suggest with clients and the folks I'm working with is you ought to be doing two different things. You ought to be doing some level of experimentation, because frankly, it's not clear what this technology can do ahead of time. Prediction is a great word that Eric used, which is, in the past with our typical algorithmic sort of machine learning, you kind of knew what it would do and what its limits are right off the bat, right? Okay, I know this is how it does it, if then else, and da 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 da. With this stuff, with the deep learning, not even the experts know what it's going to do exactly. And so there is a lot of experimental sort of aspect to it that can be good, and from a sort of bottom-up standpoint, because you got to find out what it could possibly do. You've got to find out the limits. There are certainly limits and drawbacks, but also there's exciting upside that may not be clear to OpenAI or the inventor. You have to discover it. So some level of being a little bit loose and letting people play with it without getting themselves into trouble and putting trade secrets into things and stuff where they shouldn't be. But basically be able to experiment to understand the art of the possible. But then at the same time, you've got to educate the senior people in your organization to, again, pay attention, particularly to the strategic areas. Cybersecurity would be an example of that, right? Pay attention to that and understand how this technology can drive strategic value and work that top down more from the economic standpoint. And I think that sort of twofold method is really appropriate for today's environment.
Well, Rick, you deal with strategy all day long with your clients. So is that what you're seeing with your particular projects? You have to add, show them the value add?
Yeah, well, we are consultants. So first of all, we need to, and that's how our brains work. We are data-driven guys. First thing is we need to look at the data, and what Steve said was actually amazing insight, since companies are at the same time they can bet on a certain things. One of them is, I call it, obviously I don't know if the word will coin that, but summarization is a huge thing. It's a low-hanging fruit. Like if you have a company, most of the time, summarization, like summarize stuff, whatever you summarize.
We'll give you credit for that one.
Yeah, thank you. You can tell my accent. I'm born and raised in Europe and messing up the accent all the time, but trying my best. So first of all, imagine like people cannot catch up meetings. They cannot read after notes, streamline tasks. So if you look at solutions like Adam.ai that can streamline tasks directly to Jira, just to make sure that next steps will not be forgotten, that's a low-hanging fruit. Another thing is like summarizing meetings, something we know from like Order.ai, or any summarization tool can do it pretty well. And that's a low-hanging fruit. The third thing is, imagine one of our customers is a company that play with CRM systems. They build a CRM system, they secret sauce, whatever it is. And now imagine the sales guy having like messages incoming through phones, which is speech, and then you have a text, emails, and at least 3 different sources. If you can so it's like an orange, banana, and apple. Through summarization, you can just put them in one basket. All of them become orange. And then if you summarize all of that, which includes speech to text recognition, by the way, so then you can actually fill up that CRM fields pretty quickly. So people don't have to just type things after the busy day at work, make sure that they upload notes. So they had that already in the system. So summarization is a huge low-hanging fruit in any business. So that's what ChatGPT changed a lot, obviously. And that's the first thing we see in any business, that if you approach that, every business at some point requires that kind of technology. On the other side, you guys also mentioned privacy. There is a research showing that 4 to 10% of employees around the world upload company secrets to ChatGPT. For instance, people upload like financial statements and send the prompt, summarize it to me so I can use it as an executive summary for my presentation, right? So we need to be also aware of that. There is another end of this bat, and we need to look at that. So there are definitely things like this. Solid use case, again, what I want to do, what I say here. So customers are looking for that. Obviously, they're interested in opportunities like, we can do this, like sentiment analysis. We can go through our recommendations on the website and try to find out those that we can quickly and automatically answer. They want it, but I would say that 80% of the customers, they're really looking for a solid use case. And when we're speaking about ChatGPT, summarization and bullet pointing stuff, it's actually improving a lot of productivity in the workspace across the enterprises.
So both of you guys talked a little bit about, kind of how you advise your clients and the budgets that you'd have to put together. Are they looking to do their own type of proprietary stuff, or are they putting budgets together to buy better technology platforms that incorporate some of the ChatGPT in there?
Yeah, I'd say from my perspective, sort of both. Now, I'm sort of a fractional chief technology officer for a couple startups, and they happen to be oriented more to the big media space, right? So it's about understanding what's in videos and sort of that semantic understanding, shoppable videos and so forth. And those kind of cases, we'd be leveraging certainly the great stuff from like an OpenAI and so forth. But a lot of it is we've got to build it, right? It's a build kind of thing, and we have to budget for building it because it's essentially a strategic process for us, right? We have to have a point of differentiation, just as you're doing with the Prancer capabilities of building an AI into your products. For other clients, like bigger clients that I deal with, I think it's a combination again, where for non-strategic areas where there isn't necessarily a competitive advantage, it's silly to roll your own too much, in my view. I think that's a waste of your money. I think it's useful to do some experimentation. I think you have to focus on where to place your bets, and that is the stuff that is going to be really important to you, because we already see ChatGPT has disrupted some of the industries already, right? Education is a good example where Khan Academy has put in basically a tutor run by sort of ChatGPT kind of capabilities that basically you can see how every one of us is going to be able to have a personal tutor. And that has killed people, Chegg and Pearson, their stocks have gone like that. Wow. Just so fast within 6 months. So I think, again, you have to have your eye on what's going to really matter. And in those areas, you may want to go beyond just leveraging this stuff and have your own fine tuning, bring stuff in house so you can basically modify the off the shelf stuff to be even better and more directed to your data learning to action processes that are going to differentiate you from the competition.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know with Prancer, we've ended up, the data that we're collecting is proprietary, or sits in Prancer, and all our clients talk about making it actionable, and then also being able to make compliance reports and being able to do things that communicate with the DevOps teams on how to make the changes. In fact, the remediation elements go directly into the CI/CD process for the DevOps groups, so that 95% of all code or APIs had some kind of vulnerability out there. That's the problem. I mean, it's just so much. It's so daunting. I've been surprised by this industry. It keeps allowing these kind of things to happen. But with ChatGPT, we've been able to make quick recommendations. Of course, you never do it automatically. Well, I wouldn't say we allow them to do it automatically, but the remediation should be checked by the DevOps team and then put in there. But coming up and researching that remediation is a huge amount of time.
Right.
For us to cut that time and put it in front of the DevOps person and be able to make that kind of suggestion, click, and it goes into their code, is how we have, I think, Arik, to your point, improving productivity in your organizations. Right. It's dramatically changing how the task that people have to do out there.
Yeah. Well, I think that I want to add one thing, that like summarization I mentioned is like pretty obvious, because everybody understands that, because everybody can play with ChatGPT. But another case is it's pipeline health monitoring. Imagine you are a B2B company, you sell services, let's say you're a manufacturer, and you have a customer's pipeline. Your sales guys working on that. They want to make sure that they, land customers and grow business. ChatGPT or maybe large language models or deep learning, like Steve mentioned, can help here a lot. But what I'm heading is companies surprisingly are not. It's not popular for companies to calculate the AI budget. It's still in an IT budget pocket.
Oh, okay.
What I mentioned is, AI is different in nature. We know here that you need to first of all, you need to have a data, get them, cleanse them, prepare them, visualize it, play with them, whatever that process is. Then you need to train a model or hire a model or open source the model, whatever your strategy is. And then you need to find out that it works for you. So pipeline health monitoring that can be actually pretty well maintained and accelerated by technologies like by machine learning or things like that, supervised, unsupervised, requires that. And that's different than buying a Microsoft Team licenses and setting up the servers or moving your software to AWS. It's different. That's why companies are learning that they need to look at AI as a separated budget and things and effort. The second thing is that, and I completely agree with what Steve said, experimentation means that you cannot have what I call it pocketed proof of concepts, which means that, let's say I'm the CEO of the company and I really get along with sales guys. I love them. We can talk about everything. But the supply chain guys are kind of like, they don't like test things. They close in a warehouse. They have drones and all these technologies, but they kind of like, ChatGPT is a toy to us. That's where leaders are actually avoiding. They want to have a proof of concept spread out across the company and strategically aligned to the goal, so they can test it in different part of the company. And that's actually, I read what Steve said is experimenting. It's not like, shooting a little bit here and a little bit there. That's why you need to be consistent, and you need to have a proof of concept strategy, almost like standardized process of doing many proof of concept, because obviously if you standardize this, the cost of the next proof of concept is getting down, and that's what you need. But then you need to be sure that you have an AI budget for it, because that's a different animal, different story to get that. So coming back to your question, Jeff, if companies are like hiring tools, finding tools, I would say that depends on their strategy. But those that are consciously picking up the strategy, they need to experiment a lot across the whole enterprise and then decide, should we get Microsoft Teams or AWS solutions as a packet of cloud, or we need to build our own technology, which in AI case is train our own models. And that's what I see looking at our current and potential customers.
Yeah, well, remember now, we're talking about those quick hits, being able to put those things in. I know you probably want one of those big 10-year projects, but we were talking about how people can do that, the fast productivity.
Yeah, but imagine this. If you have a platform like Trello, Asana, whatever you have, and you get the simple plugins with summarization, with getting like naming your next task, building your backlog. Those are things that you can plug in very quickly. Even like last thing, like email thing, there's an app called Canary Mail. They use a co-pilot. So instead of writing your email, the software will summarize it for you and suggested 3 answers: positive, negative, and delay answer, which basically you answer the email in negative way, positive way, or you want to send somebody, hey, I need to work on that. And that's a simple tool that actually lowered down your email time by 25% per week, which is something you can get off the shelf, download from the App Store. It's $100 lifetime license, and you can go. Obviously, I'm not talking about cybersecurity stuff here, because that's a different story. And you, Jeff, knows that better than I do. I'm not cybersecurity expert, but all of that stuff, it's plenty of them right there. I want to also mention one example, Klarna. There is a European company, Klarna, that is like basically buy now, pay later. They used to be like buy now, pay later. Now you can go on the website and they ask, what are the best known sunglasses currently people buy all over the world? And ChatGPT give you 4 options. You hit one button and you just get those and you pay later. That's another low-hanging fruit with ChatGPT option, obviously commercial option that the company pay for that, and a separated space for LLM model. But that's hanging fruits right now that you can quickly go and test.
That's interesting. Steve, from your standpoint, when you write about this, is there a return on investment formula, or is there something that people should consider calculating this benefit?
I mean, frankly, I'll be honest, I don't distinguish AI from any other IT or any other investment, right? I think there's different ways to handle them, like I said, because I think you have to do a little more experimentation, at least given where we are now with the technology, et cetera. But so I think some of it, you might have a general budget, or just generally let people that are motivated experiment under, some level of control, so, that you don't have any issues. From a strategic standpoint, I think it always has to be guided by the economics of your processes that you're trying to improve. Generally, you're trying to improve a process. Generally, it's data learning to action kind of process, but it could be other kind of automated sort of things. And you're going to be addressing some sort of bottleneck that you couldn't do before without the machine learning. And the question is, how much is the value, if you can resolve that bottleneck from machine learning, worth? And you ought to always just do a cost benefit analysis from my standpoint, and not be too much budget driven, because if something is really, really important to the company, and this kind of technology can resolve it, figure out how to get it done. And if you have to go to the board to get the approval, do it. But on the other hand, you also see people, if they're not careful, they're running around, like chickens with their heads cut off, because, you're bombarded by vendors and media right now, et cetera. And again, I think the hype is real. It's based on something real, but still everybody's in this game now, right? Trying to sell you things. And so I think you've got to be careful a little bit about having some general budget for it and betting on the come. I think you have to let economics ultimately rule. You know, I'm a recovering economist at heart, even though I play in this machine learning. And I think you have to let economics rule. And in that sense, I don't think AI ML is different from the kinds of information technology that we've had to deal with in the past.
Okay.
Just my view
Okay.
as a recovering economist.
So, we talked a little bit about budgets. Rick, is there a best practice of implementing some of these chat GPT or AI to simple best practices, not the 3-year ones?
Well, no, yeah, of course. I don't think so. It's too early to get a standard around this. Definitely, there are frameworks, and we also use a framework if you want to approach process like that. So the certain steps you need to do to make sure that first you know what you're changing. And what Steve said, the bottleneck to me, it's a problem statement you create with a customer, something that you want to either remove or redesign. Sometimes you can remove the bottleneck, like people copying pasting from different spreadsheet, and sometimes you cannot remove it, but you can redesign the thing. So that's the first one. And then you need to obviously work on the ROI. And to me, ROI, it's a very classical way. It's a simple and not overcomplicated. It's a classical project management triangle. You have a cost, time, and quality. Every project, even like you want to approach that with ChatGPT, needs to change at least one of these factors. So you want to make things cheaper, you want to make things faster or better. The better is the idea of writing better emails or better executive summaries. ChatGPT can do it better than most people because it was trained to analyze more parameters and bring the next word in a better way. So that's the second thing, ROI. And then there's an execution, which is like classical project management. And only thing that is different in AI project is basically it needs that training time. So it's different than like installing the ready-to-go software. I wouldn't say there is a best practice yet, but there are frameworks, clear steps that always wants you to design what is the next step, who is responsible for that, and what are the deliverables. And that will always would always be a guidance here. And it doesn't matter if you do like 2 years project or 2 months pilot, whatever it is, it's always you go through that steps. They shorter in proof of concept than the longer project, but they always in place.
Yeah, that's interesting. From a Prancer standpoint, that time and cost and quality certainly comes into play because when each stage of our platform, whether it's the auto discovery up front, takes a lot of time for different groups to figure out these new hybrid clouds or the new even on-prem to cloud type of structures and where the APIs are and what applications.
Yes.
CIOs come to us all the time and say, well, I don't even know how many applications I have. How many do I have? I said, well, that's what Prancer does, is find that. And then we go into the actual testing and the vulnerability assessments using an intelligence system that tests in several layers. But then we end up putting it into a ChatGPT element where it takes all that data and says, this is over time, we've been able to do this on a continuous basis. This is your risk assessment. We put it in a CVSS scores. The ChatGPT kind of gives you a contextualized element, as well as puts it into perspective that here's the highest ones to work on for your DevOps teams right away. We end up using ChatGPT actually to do some of the remediation suggestions that make it really easy to get fed in right into the CI and CD process. And then boom, you can actually you push a button and generate the reports that usually take a lot of time as well. So all those stages have this monster 4-week, 5-week time period. And, the industry's realizing it can't do that kind of process anymore. So we feel like that's been able to drive a lot of value added process for us. But well, hey, you guys, we're toward the end of our thing, but hey, Steve, how do people get a hold of you and give you kind of a twig, a ping for? Yeah, I like what you said.
Yeah, easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm pretty available on there, so just ping me in the message, or if you're further away, just say you want to connect, and I will. As long as you're not a spammer, I will connect with you.
Boy, I'll tell you what, your posts have been pretty interesting lately. You know, how your GPT takes the bar exam. I like that one. Learning is key to intelligence. Changes society. Read that one. That's a Steve said, don't get into that topic. That one we'll try. Well, anyway, it's amazing what you learn from just his post right there. Arik, how about yourself? Now you have a newsletter out there that's pretty intriguing too on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm a lazy guy. So newsletter is actually something that forced me to read and write, which is the best way to, I guess, store the knowledge in my brain. Yeah, LinkedIn is perfect. I'm there all the time, following great personalities like you, Jeff, and Steve now, learning from you guys too. So I'm always on LinkedIn every day, not only for connecting, but also learning. So LinkedIn, perfect place, and glad guys connect, have a great conversation there.
Well, about you guys both came from my Kellogg network, so I appreciate being connected with you and enjoying your intelligence there. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. And I mean, everyone's head's probably spinning from the discussion and how you framed it. And I think we'll try to. It sounds like we need to stay. Podcast number 2 lined up pretty soon too. So appreciate you guys' time, and let's go ahead and have a great rest of the week.
It was a pleasure. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay,
I learned a lot from you.
Enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Guess we need to leave.
We're done.
Right? Steve, that was a pleasure to meet you. Super interesting insight. I will follow you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was great. I will check out your newsletter now here. So
I'll check out your profile. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.